Hi, I am Michael Santos with michaelsantos.com and prisonprofessor.com. I'm really looking forward to sharing with you another module of the Earning Freedom Mastermind program. Today we are going to be talking about, I think it's the fifth component. It is the concept of accountability. Now that shouldn't be a new concept to any of you. All of you have had accountability metrics throughout your life, but we're going to talk a little bit about how to use it in the context of this Earning Freedom Mastermind program. But let's begin with a recap. A recap is that we started off with preparing ourselves for success by understanding the importance of values, by defining who we are rather than allowing external circumstances to define who we are. We choose our own path. As I had mentioned in previous episodes of this series, in my own case, when I went to prison, there was this concept that I didn't want to be defined by the bad decisions I made when I was 20 years old. Instead, I wanted to start focusing on what I could do to change my life, what I could do to prove worthy of the avatars in my life. Those of you who are new to the podcast will understand when I spoke about avatars, I was talking about the people that I wanted to invest in me, the people I wanted to believe in me later in my future. Because I knew I was going to be in prison for a long time. When I'd read Socrates for the first time and I put that book on my chest and I sat there and I just thought about what am I going to do with my life, I began thinking about is there anything that I can do to prove worthy of people in the future? And who were those people that I wanted to prove worthy of? They were people like my future probation officer, a future business partner, a future creditor, just anybody in the future that I thought could have a meaningful, measurable influence on my ability to transition back into society as a law-abiding, contributing citizen. Because I knew the metrics. I knew that the longer an individual served in the system of corrections, the less likely that person would be to emerge successfully as a law-abiding, contributing citizen. And that's really what I wanted. I wanted so badly to come back to society strong with my dignity intact, ready to really begin running instead of having to come out there basically on my knees asking for assistance all the time, measuring success by just getting a minimum wage job. No, I really wanted to crush it, just like I want each of you to crush it. And that's why I continuously bring this content about the importance of this 10-step plan that we put together with the Mastermind course, hoping that you will find ways to use it in your life, just as I used it in my life, just as I learned from masterminds who lived before me, masterminds who have achieved extraordinary levels of success. They all embraced this principled, deliberate approach to success. And it all began with defining the values by which you profess to live. The alternative is to let the outside forces or the conditions of your current circumstances dictate your life. Always people are going to be judging you. I didn't want to be judged for the bad decisions of my 20s. I wanted to be judged by the way that I responded to those decisions. And that's why the first step in this program is establishing your values. The second step, of course, is establishing the goals, the very clearly defined goals that are going to determine whether you are in fact consistent with these values you said are so important to you. In my case, I told you the first one for me, that I thought about what my avatars would expect. They would expect me to work toward educating myself. They would expect me to work toward contributing to society. And they would expect that I would build a support network. If I could do those three things, I believe my life would be different. And just as if you establish your values and put a connection to it, I think your life will be different. So the next step was setting clear goals. What did it mean to educate myself? Well, from my avatar's perspective, and that's who I was thinking. I wasn't thinking of from my perspective. I was thinking about from my avatar's perspective. And from their perspective, it would be a university degree. What would it mean to contribute to society? I didn't think from my perspective. From my perspective, it could be just getting up in the morning. It could be just, getting in great physical shape. It could be anything I chose. I thought about my avatar's perspective. And based on the place where I was, inside of a high security penitentiary, I thought that, well, the best way that I can transcend these walls and reach into the community will be by publishing. I didn't know how I was going to publish at the time, but it became very important for me to say, I'm going to find a way to publish sometime within the first 10 years of my sentence. The third concept was to build a support network. And I wanted to find 10 people that I didn't know and the 10 people that didn't know me and persuade those people to believe in me. If I could do that, that I believed would help move the needle. If I could earn a university degree, if I could publish something, if I could find 10 people that I didn't know and that didn't know me and persuade them to believe in me, I believed opportunities would open. And that's what launched me on this path. And we went in, as we discussed in previous episodes of this course, it was important to move forward with the right attitude. And I defined the right attitude as 100% commitment to success. It was also important that I move forward with an aspiration, a very clear aspiration of how I would come out on the other side of this journey. And in my case, that concept was I'm going to be able to put on a suit and tie, walk into any room, any community, and everybody in that audience would see me as a good person, as a law-abiding citizen. Not a single one of them would believe that I served a day in prison unless I told them. That's what it meant to me to come back to society unscathed, as if the prison system wouldn't have any influence on me. Now, that's not important to everybody, but for me, that was important because I believed if I could come out that way, more opportunities would open. I would have more opportunities to build a successful career. I'd have more opportunities to persuade people to see me as something different from the bad decisions I made when I was 20. And so that's why I'm suggesting you also have the right attitude. First of all, establish your values, set clear goals. Third, have the right attitude by 100% commitment to success as you define success. Aspire to something great. Aspire to something that is bigger than what you are right now. Aspire to something that you can build that will make you happy and fulfill you and help you feel as though you're living a life of relevance and meaning as you define it. Not as I define it, not as your case manager defines it, not as your future probation, as you define it. Because once you can crystallize that vision, you embark upon the next step, which is action. You've got to take incremental action steps. If you take those incremental action steps, that's when you are going to see real progress being made, because you know that the tiny steps you have to take today are going to lead to new opportunities tomorrow. And that's why it's so crucial to embark upon this plan. But when you're trying to postpone gratification for years or decades into the future, as I had to do, you really need the next step. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's accountability metrics. What is an accountability metric? Well, an accountability metric that I define is the same thing that you used when you were in school, or better yet, if you have children, the same thing you use when you govern your children. Every quarter, you're expecting a report card. They get that report card. That's going to tell you what your child did during the past 90 days. Okay, whether they're meeting expectations, whether they're falling behind. If they're falling behind, you're going to counsel your child and try and get them on the right track so that they make better progress in school. I know that when I was a young boy and a young man, I wasn't such a good student. I didn't pay attention to those report cards, and it had a disastrous effect. But one thing I've learned since I've been in prison, or I'm not in prison anymore, but while I was in prison, was it was just as important for me. It was, in fact, more important for me to have solid accountability metrics that I could use to help propel me along the journey. Why? Because my sentence was so long. I mean, I had a 45-year sentence. Okay? Now, it's true that I could satisfy that term in 26 years if I avoided disciplinary infractions. And so still 26 years, that's a long time. I mean, I'm recording this video today. It is, I'm going to get my calendar, it's October the 22nd, 2015. If somebody was going to go into prison at the same time that I went in and served the same amount of time that I did today, he's 23 years old, he's going to have to sustain a high level of energy and discipline for every day for 9,500 days. That means he won't conclude his obligation to the prison system until October of 2041. That's just a long time, and it's just too hard to comprehend. I couldn't comprehend it. So what I did was I focused on the first 10 years. The first 10 years, I said, during these first 10 years, I know what I'm going to accomplish. I'm going to accomplish 3 things. I'm going to have at least 1 university degree. I am going to definitely be a published author. I am going to find 10 people that I don't know and persuade them to believe in me. And if I could do that, I believe that I could change my life, and I believe that I could influence more people to change their life. That was my belief. But I needed to measure it because I had a long ways to go. So I needed to create my own accountability metrics. And what do I mean by that? Well, if I knew where I needed to be at 10 years, then I could figure out where do I need to be in 5 years. And if I know where I need to be in 5 years, then I can figure out where do I need to be in 2 years? Where do I need to be in 1 year? Where do I need to be in 6 months? Where do I need to be next month? What do I need to be doing next week? What do I need to be doing today? And see, when you reverse engineer it that way, something magical happens. And I'm going to tell you what that is. You get motivated. You get disciplined. You get this passion inside of you to say, I am going to make it. Nothing is going to get in my way. And you start making decisions to say, I've got to do this because I've got to reach my goal. You're not waiting anymore. It would have been just incomprehensible for me to say, I'm going to wait 26 years to get my results. Just like it would be incomprehensible to take a young 20-year-old kid today, lock him in prison and say, I want you to stay highly energized and motivated and passionate until 2041. You won't get out until 2041. That's just not realistic. But if you reverse engineer and you say, okay, in 10 years, I'm going to get university degrees. Okay? Well, then I'd say, okay, but I'm also going to publish. I'm also going to find 10 people. Then I say, okay, let me say, what do I have to do? So I could reverse it and say, what do I have to do to make that happen? And you can do, as I spoke about in the last lesson, take these incremental action steps. The first action steps I had to take was to find a university that would even let me get in, because I didn't have any money. And I'd been a lousy student in high school, and I was in jail. I mean, those are not great credentials to get into the prison system. So I'll be looking over here because I've got two screens working on it. I need to see the time because I got a break to thank my sponsors. But I want to get this message across. The important thing for me was to always stay on track. Because if you don't stay on track, I'm going to tell you what happens, and you may know what happens. The days turn to pass out. The days start passing out. My wife's called me right now, so I got to let her know that I'm doing a podcast. But the days start going forward. The weeks go away. You end up not making any progress. And I don't want that to happen. I didn't want that to happen to me. I don't want it to happen for you. I want you thinking about, what can I do today to prepare for a successful life tomorrow? And how am I going to hold myself accountable? Because the system isn't really going to give you any of those metrics. The system is only going to be concerned with the number of calendar pages that turn and enough that gets out until you get out of prison. You've got to have your own accountability metrics. And those accountability metrics have to tell you what you're going to do today. They have to give you the inspiration to get up in the morning, to get things done. In my case, I knew I needed to find universities. So what do? I start writing letters to universities. And I set a very clear goal. Okay, I'm going to write to 100 universities. Why 100? I mean, maybe it was 200. I don't remember. This was like 1988, back 27 years ago. I don't remember how many universities I had to write to, but I knew it was a lot. And I knew I could set very clear goals. Okay, if I write one letter out to a university, maybe I get a response. If I write 10 letters out to a university, I got a better shot. If I write 100 letters out, I've got a much better shot of getting a response. And so instead of writing and defining success as getting a response from the university, my success on my accountability metric became, I'm going to write 100 letters. Okay, that's something I can measure, and I can even measure it. I'm moving stuff over here from one screen to another. I can even measure it from during a given timeline. So say this week I'm going to write 20 letters. So what do I have to do to write 20 letters? Well, I've got to take the first step. I've got to find the addresses. You know how I did it? I simply went to the library in the prison. I found a dictionary, Webster's Dictionary, and in the back of it I found a list of 4-year colleges. Okay, and it just gave me their names. It gave me the city that they were in. It didn't even give the address. But I just wrote. I found out if I just write a letter to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan, it gets there. Admissions director. And what did the letter say? The letter basically said this: my name is Michael Santos. I made some really bad decisions as a young man, but I want to change my life. I'm in prison. I am really hoping that you can open on an opportunity for me to go to school, and I want to educate myself. And I'd blast that letter off to the university, because all I had was nothing more than one of these. Same thing you have. I have a pen and a piece of paper. I didn't have internet. I didn't have a computer. The internet didn't even exist back then. But you know what I did have? Same thing each of you have: an iron will to succeed, an absolute commitment that says nothing is going to get in my way. That's what 100% commitment means. That's what the right attitude means. And I can tell you, you've got to become a friend of failure. You've got to become a friend of rejection, because you're going to send a lot of letters out and you're not going to get a lot of response. But if you keep at it, if that commitment stays the same, if you stay on your accountability metric, you are going to find that doors open. And guess what? You are the one that opened those doors. And when you open those doors, a sense of liberty comes on you because you start to feel as though, wow, I really did make a difference. I really did have an opportunity to change my life. I really did have an opportunity to grow. And that's what I want for each of you. So I'm coming to the halfway point of this episode. I'm not even going to stop the recording and break to say a message I sponsor. I'm just going to weave it right in here today. Today I'm going to say a sponsorship message and say thanks to this incredible organization that allows me to sit here and work. I'm working at buybelize.com. It's a phenomenal global real estate developer that operates businesses in the country of Belize. They develop land in oceanfront communities, and they allow people to build their dreams in that community. And I just ask them for an opportunity to come in here so that I can have some office space, so I could record these podcasts and these episodes to inspire people, and they gave it to me. So if you are looking for land ownership in paradise, give me a call. I can get you an extraordinary deal, such as nothing down. I can get you 0% interest rates. I can give you an opportunity to own your slice of paradise. Very easy to do. If you're interested in something like that, contact me. I'm Michael at michaelsantos.com, and I will connect you with the principals at buybelize.com and get you in to owning your own slice of paradise today. You can own an appreciating asset in an appreciating market. There's my sponsorship message today. Don't know how well I did, but I didn't want to stop because I'm now doing a video commercial. And I'm not only doing this on audio, I'm also recording it on video because I'm going to pipe these into the prison system. I'm going to inspire people in prison to transform their life, to prepare for their own success. And I want them to do it by adhering to this principled, deliberate approach of using accountability metrics, of using a values-based, goal-oriented, deliberate approach to success. Again, this isn't new. This isn't a concept that you don't know about. The question is, how willing are you to begin using this approach to build a successful life? Okay? How willing are you to begin looking at what you can become in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years? How willing are you to reverse engineer your way to get there? Because when you do this, you will find opportunities are going to open for you. Those opportunities are available to everybody around you. Just as everything that I achieved when I was in prison, it was available to every individual who served time alongside me. I went to prison without any money. I went to prison without a good education. I went to prison with a sentence that was going to keep me locked up for 26 years. And yet, in spite of that, I was able to build a life of meaning and relevance, just like each of you can do. And how did I do it? Well, I did it very simply by following the principled approach of masterminds, the principled approach that I'm striving, that I feel so passionately about sharing with each of you. Because I know that if you pursue this path, your life will be different on the other side. It won't be filled with excuses. It's a matter of saying, I am here where I am today because of the decisions that I made yesterday. And when you pursue that path, when opportunities open, you're going to leverage those opportunities and open new opportunities. Once I got into the university and I began then focusing on really educating myself, on truly developing a skill set, on improving my vocabulary, on improving my writing skills. I mean, when I started, I couldn't write a coherent sentence. I didn't know, the difference between a noun, a verb, an adjective, an adverb. I didn't understand any of that. Why? Because I'd been a lousy student in high school. Because when I was in school, as a young kid, I didn't pay attention to accountability metrics. I learned how to do that when I was in the most difficult circumstances. That's what I'm striving to teach to each of you through this course. And that's what I would love for you to understand, because if you do, that's when you can start moving the needle and building a better life. That's when you can start changing. It's not only in terms of preparing yourself for a successful career. It's also in terms of your fitness. A lot of you guys who are in prison, you're really into working out and exercise, and you know the importance of accountability metrics. A lot of guys say they want to get a big chest. A lot of guys say they want to lose weight. A lot of guys say they want to get big guns. But the reality is, if they don't put in the work, if they don't measure themselves, saying, I'm going to work out, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, whatever the challenge is, then they never make the progress. They never move the needle. But they're always focused. They're not measuring themselves on the bench number they're going to get sometime in the future. They're measuring themselves by what? By what they can do tomorrow, knowing what they're going to do next week. And I mean, these guys used to make elaborate charts on fitness, but I've got news for you. Fitness is awesome, but it doesn't really lead to employment for a lot of guys when they get out. And if you want to succeed when you get out, it's really important to be thinking about those avatars, about those people that you want to get into your court, the investors you want to believe in you, and to start thinking not about how you measure success, but how they measure success. When you start thinking about what do they want and what can I do to earn the credentials and prove worthy of their support, that's when everything changes in your life. That's when you stop serving time and you begin building a platform to success. In yesterday's podcast, I spoke about my partner, Justin Paperny. He was a guy who, had a pretty successful career before he went to prison. He was a stockbroker, graduated from USC, a student athlete, got in trouble with some type of securities violation and came to prison for 18 months. And when he came in, his life just totally imploded, as it does for a lot of guys who have their livelihood ripped away from them. They don't know what they're going to do. They're lost. But when we started speaking about, the way that he could provide value to society, that's when his life changed. That's when he started to realize, well, you're right. There are a lot of people who are in this same approach. And we, just by continuously talking, reverse engineering, just asking questions, kind of in the Socratic method, the way that I learned from Socrates, asking, well, what would it take for you to persuade people to believe in you? If you violated securities laws, if you're a felon, what's it going to take? And you keep asking those questions and you come up with some answers. We suggest, maybe it's important for you to document your journey. Maybe it's important for you to write a book about what you've learned through this experience and why you'll never do it again and what you wished you would have done differently. And through those questions, and you say, okay, well, now let's just create a map. You've got 18 months. How long is it going to take you to document your journey? How long is it going to take you to write your manuscript? How long is it going to take you to bring your manuscript to market? How are you going to do all of these types of things? What will be the end result if you sow these seeds? And so within a couple of months, Justin had a pretty solid roadmap. I said, okay, this is what I've got to do when I'm in prison. Got to record my journey, got to write my book, got to stay fit, got to connect with society, got to let the world know what I'm going to do, and got to be 100% transparent and authentic. These are some very clear metrics that he has to do within a very clear timeline, 18 months. And then what happens when it gets to the 18 months? Well, he's all finished. Everybody goes to prison and say, I'm going to do all these things. But the reality is, not that many people can muster the discipline and the energy that it takes to truly execute the plan. And that's what I'm asking you to do. Execute the plan. Use your accountability metrics to execute your plan. Because when you do, you end up with a result. You end up with a result that will transform your life. Justin used his books to really open a whole new career, to reinvent himself. I mean, he got out of prison, I think it was like 2009. It was the worst economy in our lifetime. Massive recession going on, massive unemployment rate. And here he was, a convicted felon, had lost his livelihood and has to go reinvent himself. And, had he gone out into the job market, he would have faced some enormous challenges. You can't cry about that. You just got to say, hey, I got to live in the world as it exists, not as I want it to be. And when I take that approach, that's when I can start saying, I'm going to make my own future. And accountability logs are going to help me get there. Values, goals, the right attitude, aspiration, action, and accountability metrics, essential to success. Those of you who have some familiarity with business know that that's how we measure the stock market. Every 90 days, there's going to come out a report, a financial report. We're going to find out how that company performed during the past quarter. Did it live up to expectations? Did they do what the CEO said it was going to do? Are the investors confident that this company can continue to deliver value? Why do so many investors rely upon those investor reports? Because of those accountability metrics that tell us, can we believe in this individual? Should we invest in this organization? Because the reality is people invest in people. People don't invest in companies. They invest in people, in leadership, all right? So if you're a great leader, it's time to be the CEO of your own life. And you need to have your own accountability metrics. You need to say what you're going to do, and then you need to crush through those expectations. You need to really deliver. I told you that in my case, I said, in 10 years, I'm going to have a university degree. In 10 years, I'm going to be a published author. In 10 years, I'm going to have 10 people who believe in me. But it didn't take 10 years. Why? Because I was on this deliberate path. I had my first degree in 1992 after I was only incarcerated for 4 years, I think it was. And remember, I spent the first year in a county jail not even understanding that. But once I got to the penitentiary, boom, I was on it. And I got my degree in 1992. Then I continued. I got a master's degree in 1995. How? Don't have any money. Didn't have anything when I went in there. Couldn't go to school, couldn't take the GRE, but I was on this accountability metric, and because I was on it, boom, I was ready. And when I had that master's degree, I felt I was no longer a prisoner. I felt as though I was a citizen. I felt as though I'm making things happen, and that's what I want you to do. Make things happen. It doesn't have to be the same path. I'm not even suggesting that it's the same path that I'm on. All I am suggesting is create your own path. And then once you create that path, execute it. Execute that plan every single day. Use your accountability metrics to make things happen. Because I found that when I'm on this kind of a path, not only do opportunities open, but those opportunities lead to other opportunities. If I hadn't gone to undergraduate school, I couldn't have gotten into graduate school and gotten a master's degree. Had I not gotten into graduate school and gotten a master's degree, I couldn't have opened publishing opportunities that resulted in me reaching not 10 people, but tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people while I was in custody. And those relationships that I built helped me to open additional opportunities that resulted in me creating value in society and translated into having money in the bank so that when I got out of prison, I would have enough money in the bank to live a whole year, whether I earned a penny or not. That's independence. And when you create that, and when you know you created that, why? Because of the decisions that you made, because of the accountability metrics that you used, new opportunities open. And in these future episodes, I'm going to be talking about the new opportunities that open for me. And I want you to know, some people will say, oh, well, he was lucky. Opportunities open. But that luck has nothing to do with it. Luck is a combination of hard work and a solid will, a solid, deliberate path says, I'm going to crush it. And the people who aren't doing it are always going to be saying, he's lucky. But the reality is, I know. Why do I know? Because I was in those same chairs of a prison. I lived in that room, in those environments that seemed to extinguish hope. I understood what it felt like to go through years separated from the people I love and the people who love me. And despite that difficulty, despite that challenge, I always found an opportunity to grow, to add meaning, to live a life of relevance, just as Justin did, which is why he got out of prison in the worst economy of the year and built a phenomenal career, earning a considerable income, putting him in the top 5% of all earners in the country. Now he's a homeowner. He's a business owner. He's had enormous respect from his probation officer and got off and has gone on to build a life of success and relevance where his bad decisions are no longer a burden on him. They're actually an asset. And I did 26 years in prison. I came back within 3 weeks. I was a professor in a major university. Why did that happen? It happened because I adhered to this principled path that I'm sharing with you. This principled path of establishing my values, of setting clear goals that determined whether I was consistent with those values, whether I was an authentic, transparent person, had the right attitude, 100% commitment to success, was always aspiring to come back unscathed from the prison experience. Took incremental action steps. Really important, really essential. I held myself accountable, just as I am urging you to hold yourself accountable. Use your own accountability metrics, and you will change the world. It's starting with changing your own life. So that's my module for today. on the Earning Freedom Mastermind program. We'll come back in the next episode, and it's almost a double episode. I mean, I'll still do it in 30 minutes because I don't want to take too much of your time, but I'm excited to share with you the next episode. But before I close, I want to ask those who are listening, who have an opportunity to listen to the program out here in society, if you have access to iTunes, please help me be the change that I want to see in the world by subscribing to the Earning Freedom podcast on iTunes. It's free, doesn't cost a penny to subscribe, and I ask you to rate and review the show, because if you rate and review the show and subscribe, all for free, you let Apple know that this is a valuable podcast. It gets more distribution, and I'm able to reach more people and inspire more people to transform their life. So if you believe in what we're doing, if you believe that this is the type of message that we need to pipe inside of America's prisons and jails and at-risk schools, please subscribe to the Earning Freedom Podcast. I am Michael Santos with michaelsantos.com and prisonprofessor.com, and I thank you for your support.